Good morning and welcome to Live Without Limits, the Success Shift. Think like your future self. I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and today we're talking about something that quietly shapes every relationship in your life: emotional safety. You know, emotional safety means having someone there to lean on. And when you don't, and you deal with things alone, and you feel isolated, it's one of the worst feelings you can have at a time when you truly need someone, because we need to function in a world where we build relationships with the people around us. Not communication, not compatibility, not even love, because the truth is you can love someone deeply and still not feel safe with them. You can communicate often and still feel misunderstood. Emotional safety is the foundation of every healthy relationship, whether that's with your partner, your family member, your friend, your colleague, or even yourself. And one of the things that I could say is I grew up in a family that was very, very toxic. I had a father that physically abused, a mother that psychologically abused. They did not come from homes where they experienced love and respect, and they did not know how to give it to someone else. Their relationship was not based on love. It was based on companionship. My father wanted someone to be a hostess for dinner parties and be able to cook, and my mother wanted financial security. That's the basis of what the whole relationship was based on. And that's not a healthy relationship, and it's not a good basis upon which to bring children in, because it's easy to when to make your children feel isolated, because children need to know they're loved. They need to know that they're wanted. And if they don't have those feelings, then that is some of the basis for what we call emotional isolation. And that's the gist of where we're getting to. But when emotional safety is present, you can be honest, you can be open, you can truly connect. Today, we're going to talk about what emotional safety really is and how it affects every relationship you have. Why most people don't realize its meaning, and how to create both for yourself and others. And this is such an important topic. So let's talk about what is emotional safety. Let's define emotional safety in a simple way. Emotional safety is the ability to be yourself without fear of judgment, rejection, or punishment. It's feeling like you can speak honestly, you can express emotions, that you can make mistakes, and you can disagree with the people around you without losing connection. It doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means that relationships can handle truth, discomfort, and growth. When emotional safety exists, you don't feel like you have to walk on eggshells over-explain yourself, hide parts of who you are. And here's something important. Emotional safety is not just created by others, it's also created by you. And let's explore some of that, because communication in every relationship is so important, because it's what builds and makes a relationship solid. That when someone is hurting, or when they feel hurt or angry, they can tell you why they feel that way. They can express their deep inner feelings. They can even, if you've been hurt by someone in the past and you meet someone, to feel emotionally safe to them means that they'll take you in your arms. They'll let you cry. They'll let you show what you're feeling when you're hurting, and still know that it will not push them away because of their own fears, that they're open. That's why so many people will go to a therapist, or go to a life coach, or go to someone where they can feel emotionally safe and learn how to communicate better in future relationships. Often, if we don't know how to do this, then all we're going to do is repeat old behaviors and constantly end up in bad relationships. And I can remember back when I was in high school in the 60s, and you would see couples, you would see boys abuse girls, and they would break up with them, and then all of a sudden you'd see them back together, because for them that was a comfort zone. That was an era where it was the beginning of the awakening. You heard it in the music, you saw it in what was happening during the Vietnam War. There was a lot of protests going on, and even today, what you're trying to see with all the faith-based way of doing things is that they want to go back to those isolationist times when we didn't have that kind of emotional support, where we felt as though we can open up, we can talk, we can begin to understand what the essence is of who we are and what our needs are, and how to find someone that can truly help you with meeting those needs, and understanding how that fits into emotional awareness helps you understand why it's up to you to get to that point where you feel as though you have someone that you can truly relate to and truly be open with. Now, what happens without emotional safety? When emotional safety is missing, relationships become guarded. You might notice yourself holding back your thoughts, avoiding difficult conversations, agreeing just to keep peace, feeling anxious before speaking. And over time, this creates disconnection, resentment, misunderstanding, because you're not showing up as your full self. You're showing up as a filtered version of who you are. And here's the deeper truth. When you don't feel safe, you protect yourself. And when you protect yourself, you stop connecting. That's why emotional safety is so powerful. It removes the need for constant self-protection. In the past, you saw couples, when they started having children, the children kept them together, even though there was no emotional safety or true love there between them anymore. And then that's why as the children got older and went on their own, there was nothing there between the couple that connected them, that's when you saw a high degree of divorce. And a lot of that's because they didn't look for healthy relationships. They were used to relationships where there was a lack of emotional safety, that in that the generation of adults coming up in the very early part of the 20th century were this. It was the woman stayed at home and took care of the children and was financially taken care of, and the man went out to work and was the breadwinner. That's why that generation, that I know someone that she was angry because her father left everything to the son and nothing to her. But in those days, it was expected that when women married, they married men that took care of them financially, and they didn't have to worry. Whereas because the man took care of his family, the 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 parent who controlled the money left that money to the son, so he could to make sure that that family was taken care of. But that they looked at that financial reserve as their gift. They didn't understand that loving someone means showing them that you love them, allowing them to feel hurt, allowing them to tell you when they're feeling hurt. And let me go back to that same person, because hers is a situation where her parents, when they had their first son, the doctor told her mother not to have any other children because psychologically she was fragile and couldn't handle it. But after a few years, she wanted another child, so they had another child. And her mother had a breakdown and ended up in the hospital, so that she was shuttled between relatives and really had no understanding of what real love and respect is, and ended up married to someone who basically abused her physically over the years. And then finally, she got divorced and finished her education and worked and took care of herself financially. But we all need that kind of emotional bond where we feel safe. And when you look at the 1960s, that was the beginning of the self-help industry, where you started seeing an opening up of people to discuss what was going on, to discuss and become aware. It was the beginning of experimentation with drugs, with music. If you remember what went on with the festival up in New York, God, my head's not with it right now to think about, but all of that was, it was such an opening up and an awakening and understanding when we went into the Vietnam War that it was not, most of the boys during the Vietnam War eventually went to begin with because they remembered World War II, where there was a real purpose for the war. And in this case, there was no real purpose for the United States to be there. And yet a lot of them, they were talking about fighting communism, and that's what they were fighting. And they really didn't understand what the whole purpose of And as it came out, as more people became aware of what was going on, there was more of a protest against the war. And then it was just such understanding and learning about how we need to understand exactly what's going on inside us, why we feel the way we do, why we did the things we do. And if you go back to that type of conservatism again, where people are basically ignorant in a lot of respects, then what's happening is that you're going to close yourself off. You're not going to know what a real healthy relationship is and how to really build on those kinds of relationships. So why emotional safety matters in the early area of life. And often if you feel emotionally safe as a child, that when you're hurting, you can go to that parent and talk to them and know that they'll hug you and they'll show you affection and help you to feel better and help you learn to accept yourself for who you are. There's a saying that I have on my computer, and it says, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And it's learning that, and I can tell you that when I looked at myself in comparison to my family, my parents and my sisters, I saw them at a distance, and I saw myself and as a very detached from them. And that's because I really needed a lot of emotional safety as a child growing up, because I grew up in an era with a disability that was very obvious, that I got bullied and teased in school. And then when I came home, I had no one to hug me and tell me they loved me. I had to learn to build a strength within myself to be able to deal with all of those. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about emotional safety and why it matters. Because we all need to know that we can be taken care of, that we have someone to lean on at a time when we truly need that. So emotional safety isn't just about romantic relationships. It affects communication. You speak more openly and honestly. You can trust someone knowing that they will be there. You feel secure sharing thoughts and feelings. Your mental health. You experience less anxiety and overthinking. Growth. You feel safe to learn, make mistakes, and improve. And business and leadership, people perform better when they feel safe to contribute. When emotional safety is present, people don't just stay. They expand. They share ideas. They take risks. They grow. And this is what we're trying to help you understand about why emotional safety is so important. Now, in my case, what happened was, if someone told me I couldn't do something, that was a challenge for me to prove them wrong, to go out and do what I chose to do because I could do it. And it allowed me to become even more independent and to learn to pat myself on the back. What it also did was that it gave me a purpose as an adult, that understanding what I went through as a child and how hurt I felt, that I wanted to help other people. So I studied psychology. I studied mental health. And then I went into rehabilitation counseling because I wanted to understand what the laws were and how they could help others to live the best quality of life possible. And having that emotional safety net helps you get to where you want to be so that you can make the right choices in your life and build strong relationships, whether it's in business, because having emotional safety within a business is just as important as having emotional safety in your personal life. The relationship that you have with yourself. And that's what I guess what I've been alluding to when I talk about me taking and studying psychology to understand why. Why was I in that situation? How can I change myself to be this and be strong and then use what I went through to go out and help others? So, here's something that many people overlook. The most important relationship for emotional safety is the one that you have with yourself. Ask yourself, do I feel safe being honest with myself? Do I judge myself for my emotions? Do I suppress how I feel? If you don't feel safe with yourself, you'll struggle to feel safe with others because you'll overlook everything. Second guess your feelings. Seek validation constantly. Safe Self-safety looks like acknowledging your emotions without judgment, allowing yourself to feel, trusting your voice, that you own yourself. And this is where generational and emotional safety begins. And what emotional safety means in that case is how you take yourself. Because if you're someone who is a perfectionist, then you're going to criticize a lot of things about yourself. And understanding that none of us are perfect. We're all going to make mistakes in our lives. And taking and accepting that we're not perfect instead of making your expectations on yourself so strict. And then not only expecting yourself to be perfect, but expecting everyone else around you to be perfect. And what does that do? That basically determines how you treat the people around you. And remember this, when you mistreat someone else because you're trying to make yourself feel better, then you're teaching them that this is how you expect to be treated. Because always remember this, if you want to be treated right, you have to treat others right. Because they're only going to do back to you what you did to them. Because many a time I used to say to my mother, remember how you treat me, because that's what you're going to get back. And in the latter part of her life, when she needed to be taken care of, I was not there for her. But I always feel like I couldn't because she didn't meet my needs within myself. And a lot of that, yes, I understand, was because she felt insecure about who she was, coming from the home she came from. But it didn't mean that I had to isolate myself from her because I had to be the person I wanted to be, and all she knew how to be was negative, to criticize. She never had a nice word to say about anyone. And being nice to someone and complimenting them helps create emotional safety for them and for yourself. Recognizing this and understanding this helps you get to the point where you can begin to find the kind of healthy relationships that you want to experience. So how to create emotional safety. Now, let's get practical. How do you create emotional safety? Listen to understand, not to respond. Most people listen to reply. Emotional safety comes from feeling heard. So intend, instead of thinking about what to say next, focus on understanding. Validate, even if you don't agree. Validation doesn't mean agreement. It means acknowledging someone's experience. I understand why you find that way or you feel that way. That builds connection instead of conflict. Stay calm in emotional moments. Emotional safety is tested during conflict. If you react strongly, people will shut down. If you stay grounded, they stay open. Avoid judgment and criticism. People close off when they feel judged. Instead of attacking, you always do this. I feel hurt when this happens. Be consistent. Safety is built through predictability. If you react and your reactions are unpredictable, people won't feel safe opening up. Create a space for honesty. Let people know you can be honest with me. And more importantly, prove it through your response. What you're doing here is you are teaching people by how you treat them. If you allow them to let you know when they're feeling hurt, when they're feeling angry, when you encourage them to explore their own feelings, then what are you doing? You're helping them learn how to build and feel emotional safety with you. That what you're doing is you're also allowing them to feel as though they have someone that they can talk to and talk to issues, their personal issues, to come to some decisions that they need to make. Because we need to be able to talk, to express what we're feeling and how we're feeling, and understand this on a regular basis. So how to know if emotional safety is missing? Here are signs that emotional safety might be lacking. You feel anxious before speaking. You overthink your words and you avoid conflict. You feel misunderstood. You don't express your true feelings. If that's happening, if it's not just a communication issue, it's a safety issue. So, recognizing where you're coming from. Now, the shift from protection to connection. And what happens is why we lie, why we don't truly open up, because we're protecting ourselves from even feeling more hurt than what we already feel from the person that we have a relationship with. Understanding what that is and where it comes from helps us to better deal with how we are getting to this point. The shift from protection to connection. When emotional safety is present, something powerful happens. You stop protecting yourself and you start connecting. You don't have to perform. You don't have to filter. You don't have to prove anything. You can just be you. And that's where the real relationships begin. So I want to leave you with this question. Where in your life do I not feel emotionally safe? And then how can I start creating the safety written within myself and with others? Because emotional safety changes everything. It changes how you communicate, how you connect, how you grow, and most importantly, it changes how you show up. So I want to thank you for joining me today on Live Without Limits, the Success Shift. Think like your future self. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. And remember, the safest relationship won't be perfect. They're honest, they're respectful, and they're real. So recognizing this and recognizing where you're coming from and how you can become that person you truly want to be and develop the best possible relationships you have, whether it's with your family, your peers, or even your significant other.